I have a couple of goals in my life. I think, there's a few things I want to do before I die. One, I want to fly on the Concorde. Two, I want to learn Japanese. Not that I care about Japan or anything or about their culture. It's just that I was at a Japanese restaurant and I saw this a-hole, obviously American, ordering in Japanese, and I wanted to do that. And the third thing I'd like to do, I want to visit the former
Soviet Union is how he ends that. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. My name is Jake, and this right cha is what you can do. Gang. Tomorrow is an important protest. Tomorrow, if you're watching this on the day of recording, those are the January 14th No Kings protests. Going to happen all around the world. Going to happen in your state, wherever your state is. If you would like to join, the link is in the description. What are they protesting? Well, Donald Trump is behaving like a king in all the worst ways. And that should frustrate you. That should offend you if you are an American. Donald Trump is assaulting U.S. communities by sending ICE to harass brown people. They are gathering up what they use as a slur and refer to as illegals. Now, illegals, to them, theoretically means people that have entered the United States from another country, obviously, without permission, they say. Never mind the fact that that is the way you're supposed to request asylum. They say that's what they're doing, but frankly, that's not even what they're doing. Because what they are actually doing is bothering brown people. They pull them over. If they see a brown person in a car, they interrupt businesses if they see brown people working there. They find a last name that's Diaz. They will look for that person's papers. They will prove you were born here. You say you're American. Prove it. You can't? Well, we're going to detain you till we can prove it. That you were born here. Papers, please. You must prove you are a true Aryan. You must prove you are a true German. You must prove that you belong to the fatherland. That's what's happening. We're protesting that. Come out. Come out. Are you, do you mean what you say? Are you a lefty? And do you mean what you say? Come out tomorrow. Don't come, let me be clear, if you think that you are one of the targeted groups that's going to be arrested. I don't want to exclude anybody from the left for that reason. But the rest of us, those of us who are certainly going to be safe in the long run, we have an obligation to be there. Especially those of us whose last names are not Latin sounding. Our skin is not dark enough to be immediately told apart from the white devils that are largely the ones responsible for this. We have an obligation to be there. And I frankly think everybody should be there. But, again, I'm not living your life. That's what's happening. If you want to join, the link is in the description. Let's talk about the rest of the news now. Something that's been on my mind for a good long time. I want to provide you guys with some talking points you can use if you are talking to Republicans and if you are talking to centrist Democrats. To be frank with you, I don't understand how we're going to pull Republicans out of this. I suspect the way, because these are just a bunch of trend followers, basically. I suspect the way we will is simply by defeating them politically. And in a few years, they're going to pretend like, oh, I wasn't that big of a Trump supporter. I kind of liked his policy. I didn't really hear what he was doing. I didn't know that he was doing all this horrible stuff with the Mexicans. That's the kind of stuff they're going to say. But they know what he's doing. They know what's going on. They, I think, largely know they're being lied to by Fox and by OAN. They know that. They just think that that's what everybody has going on. They think we're all being lied to and we're all just picking our favorite lies. That's basically it. But you know the reason they're able to think that? That's the centrist Democrats. That's the people who are doing on our side of the aisle the work on behalf of billionaires. And it's why we are unable to distinguish ourselves as a party in any way that a casual observer would see from the Republicans. And I know to us, that seems like madness to say. How could you possibly think these parties are at all alike? Well, you're not a casual observer. You're watching this show. To be continued. Speaking of, I am demonetized. Yeah. Let me be clear, though. This is not the same thing that happened to Sandy. Sandy, our good friend at Environmental Coffee House, she wasn't targeted, I don't think. I don't know. I hesitate to say either way. But I don't think so. I think she was simply caught up in AI shenanigans, and YouTube is doing a terrible job of fixing it, correcting their own mistake. But it will get corrected eventually. And it is not Sandy's fault. This, on the other hand, is my fault. I did the thing they said I did, 100%, and deserve to be demonetized on YouTube for it, and I regret none of it. But that does mean that in order to fund the very basic things that are involved with this channel, including editing software and what have you, I'm just going to ask you to give directly via Venmo. And who's the you, I'm asking? Well, if you're a channel member, not you. If you're a regular watcher, not you. If you care about me personally, not you. I'm putting up the generic Venmo link on the off chance that we get visitors to the channel who say, what the hell? And also because, if I'm frank, I really did want to do. This is just for the regulars that watch Left Past 10. I wanted to do a thing where I did a promotional bit where I was trying to raise funds for a jet ski, and I thought it would be very, very funny just to do like the shady, the shadiest possible way of setting things up, which would have been like do a Venmo and never report anything. But then I actually did get demonetized, and now I actually am using Venmo to pay for things. But just keeping y'all, my regular listeners, up to date on the channel, so that you don't get worried, and also so that you don't overreact. I know how generous you sons of guns are. I'm not in dire financial straits. Ever. I kind of can't be. Just because of I am poor. I'm proper poor. I stream. That's not a hobby that generally pays tons and tons. But, there's different kinds of poor. And don't give me, if you got $10, don't give me $2, Now, if you got $100,000, what the f*** are you doing? Give me that cheese. Give me that. Go to that Venmo. You got $100,000 in the bank. You go to that Venmo right now. If you have $1 less than that, just ignore it. Uh, let's talk about Dems in the center and Republicans. The reason they are on my mind so much lately is because I noticed that the left has a tendency to arrive at what we believe is the correct conclusion and then stop thinking about how anybody else is thinking. Which, if you are trying to arrive at correct conclusions, honestly, is an okay way to go about things. You know, it tunes out a lot of the noise. Like for example, the Laffer curve, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have long known that that's a nonsense way. Essentially, the Laffer curve, meaning the idea that the more you are taxed, the less likely you are to work. That was the thought behind it. And so, if you're taxed less, you'll work more, and therefore overall productivity will go up, and more taxes overall. That the theory was more taxes overall will be collected because there's more productivity happening. Well, the left has long since known that's nonsense. And so we tend to stop talking about it. But the problem is we often then get blindsided when our political opponents rattle off some theory or some justification for their normal monstrous behavior. And we all know it's immediately disprovable nonsense. And then a bunch of people vote for it. And then you ask them why they voted for whatever thing it was, and they go and tell you something that the left has known has been untrue for over a decade. I know that it's not fun to talk to these people, and I don't care. Because we failed. Us progressives have utterly failed. The progressive movement, as I know it to be, has existed since, I would say, about 2017. So that's 8 years to try to get something done. We are not now any further along than we were in 2017. Take a moment and drink that in. We're actually further behind than we were in 2017. So what we're currently doing doesn't work. That doesn't mean we can't, it doesn't mean we shouldn't go to protests. We must. That doesn't mean we shouldn't write our our representatives. We must. But we also have to change what doesn't work. That's going to include knowing the ways in which our political blocks are misinformed and having something ready for when you talk to these people. Think about what Fox News, OAN, all of that nonsense does. All it does, it basically only exists to fill in the one thing that you and I refuse to do. It's to give their side talking points that they can fall back on when they're talking to the other side. And I cannot tell you how many people I know who have said, oh, X, they are really big into politics. Like, they really like studying this stuff. They're huge Trump fans. Okay, so they're not big into politics. They don't really like studying this stuff. They actually know much less than all the rest of us about how any of this stuff works. But you, person I'm talking to, You think they know a lot because they had a lot of answers ready to go for questions like, why do you believe this or that? Why do you think we should do this or that? Where do you get this information? We've looked at it. We know where they get their information. They get their information from propaganda outlets. The absolute most educated Republican voter might reference a super right-leaning think tank, because that's what media does. When media wants to say something, and they need the news media, and they need the corrupt news media, and they need justification for that thing they want to say, they find the think tank that says it, and then they just quote them. The absolute smartest Republican voter does that. No Republican voter, except for multimillionaires, actually understands how any of this works, because if they did, they would not embarrass themselves out loud by saying out loud the people they vote for. Because the way this actually works is a bunch of con artists join the Republican Party or become centrist Dems, and they thieve from us. So we're going to talk about how you can talk to these folks. And more importantly, I think, than the far right are the centrist Dems, because this nonsense must end. There should be nobody seriously considering, for example, Gavin Newsom for a presidential run. Doesn't matter that he's doing a pretty good job as governor in this moment, where he has no choice but to do a good job. He's got the eye of the nation on him now, and he must behave a certain way, and he is behaving that way. Good for him. His politics are trash. He is responsible for some of the worst failures in America by being a centrist Democrat, by voting for the sorts of things that make Republicans seem just like us, by being ultimately a lapdog of billionaires, subservient to the oligarchy, and not interested in your interests. Certainly not not looking out for what will help you. We got to talk to them too. There should be no Democrat with any confusion about whether or not you should vote for the farthest left person in the primary. You should. Well, I got to get this out of the way. Since I'm no longer monetized on YouTube, I have had to switch to a commercial model. I'm sorry, guys. That's just the way this stuff works. If I want this thing to pay for itself, I need to run commercials. So that's the way it's going to be. Here is I am proud to introduce our first sponsor, Red Tiger Energy Drink. This show is sponsored by Red Tiger Energy Drink. Red Tiger.
不适合胆怯的糖尿病患者。
This show is being Huaijiao. All right, first segment. Let's cue this puppy up. Oh, we got folks here. Lonzetta, good to see you. Wicked Foxy Dragon, good to see you. George Waters, Perd Beer, always good to see you, gang. I don't. That's the laugher curve. All right. So we're going to start with my least favorite, because I don't think they are going to sincerely listen to us, but we should be prepared nonetheless. That is right-wingers. So listen, gang. Right-wingers. This one's for you. Now let's try this again. Right-wingers, this one's for you. If you think Trump is your guy, my question is, what is it you think he's going to do for you? Just hold on to that question in your heart. The answer to that question. What is it you think he's going to do for you? Because I can tell you that Trump is just a Republican. I know. You think he's something special. He ain't. He's doing the same Big Con has done to you for my whole life, and I keep seeing you fall for it. I can't fathom why. I'm starting to get a bit of an idea. I take that back. I've seen you fall for it over and 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 over again, but I have also seen me fall for stuff the Democrats do. The difference being I vote differently now. I've reacted to the reality. And I see you guys about 10 years behind where I was, and we just don't have that kind of time to start working together. You and my gang gotta gang up, because the actual enemy is billionaires. The actual enemy is people that get to have a say in how your life goes simply because they're already rich. That's a real problem. That is a sincere problem that I think both of us can agree to. You don't like George Soros buying elections. I don't like the Koch brothers, brother and now, buying elections. So we ought to at least agree on that much. And yet I still see right-wingers behaving as though they're going to get something. So let me show you what the Republican Party is all about with economics. You know how the Republicans used to, they really don't anymore, but they used to have a reputation as being good with economics. You know how they always are trying to give, for example, huge tax breaks to the rich. They always say, we're going to cut taxes, and they let you believe that they're going to cut your taxes. But they're not going to cut your taxes. Or if they do, they're going to cut them by a teeny tiny little bit. And then they're going to cut the rich's taxes by a lot. And when they cut the rich's taxes by a lot, they're going to give your tax cuts an expiration date. And the rich's tax cuts, no expiration date. So actually next year, you're back to paying full taxes. But the rich, no. This was a Republican gift to them. The rich will keep not having to pay taxes. And also, even in that year where your taxes are cut, the stuff you have to pay for doesn't change. You still need roads in your town. You still need to fund the emergency services in your town. So how does that get paid for? Well, your local taxes go up, dingbat. Or you end up paying for emergency health care. Or you end up paying for a different kind of retirement where you get less money every single day, because major programs you didn't even realize you were relying on get cut because they are no longer funded by taxes from rich. The rich. This is what Art Laffer came up with. His idea was that the more you cut taxes, the more people want to work. That was his general idea. Here's Sam Seder from the Majority Report explaining why that didn't work and how we know it didn't work because we tried it already in America.
But the Laffer curve has one other element. It says that if you cut taxes, you will necessarily get more revenue. Why? Because by cutting taxes in any amount, it's going to create more economic activity. You're going to get more growth, and you will get more taxes paid in volume.
In abundance.
You'll get more taxes paid in volume because, rich people will be paying less of a percentage of their income, but they're going to be making so much more money that they're going to end up paying more in taxes. Here's how Austin Goolsbee, and I'm not a huge fan of his, frankly, but here's how he says, they looked at, they asked people if they...
Yeah, this is a sort of a poll of a whole bunch of economists, Goolsbee just being one of them. So here's their sort of pithy responses to what the Laffer curve is.
Moon landing was real. Evolution exists. Tax cuts lose revenue. The research has shown this 1,000 times enough already. So the point being, okay, yeah, here's another guy, David Autor. Not aware of any evidence in recent history where tax cuts actually raise revenue. Sorry, Laffer. Chicago Booth may look plausible on a cocktail napkin or a cocktail party, but not true empirically in the U.S. That was the Laffer curve, was famously drawn on a cocktail napkin. Keep going. Chicago Booth, Richard Thaler. That's a Laffer. There you go. I mean, but we also have a very explicit real-world example, and it is called the state of Kansas. And in 2012, Sam Brownback became governor of Kansas. And he brought in Arthur Laffer to be his top advisor. And they went on a whole project of cutting taxes. Matt, I want you to Google the Kansas Art Laffer experiment and show me what the headlines are. Because after cutting taxes, the Republican-controlled Senate and Assembly in Kansas realized that it was a disaster. And now everybody's now caught on to this. But maybe you can go back, just go back like 5 years so that you see this.
As Trump proposes tax cuts, Kansas deals with aftermath.
Yes, this is all people now writing about the actual. I want to see contemporaneous headlines, because what happened in Kansas with this experiment? You got to go back, do like a time set. So just do like 2015. What happened after 2 years was that they were so decimated. Revenue was so decimated in Kansas, and they had to cut deeply into the Kansas higher education system there, destroying what was one of like the crown jewel of Kansas. They had to cut on education so deeply that a completely Republican-controlled House and Assembly raised taxes.
So try to appreciate how insane it is that when questioned about it, a Republican said that their justification for the things they are doing now with taxes, the justification is the word of this guy that he mentions.
Independent expert that you can is there an independent expert that you can point to that says that this bill will not add to our national debt? Yes or no?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
What are they?
Art Laffer.
Pardon me?
Art Laffer.
Oh, look at his face. He can't say it the second time without crying.
He's not wrong. God, I love the Majority Report. Go check him out if you don't already. If you're here, you do. I know. But the point stands. Republicans were hypothetically talking to. They just tried to cite this guy, Art Laffer. And then the whole room laughed. Republicans and Democrats, they all laughed because they all know. They all know what's going on. They all know how silly it is to use that guy as a justification for your policies. And we know that's an admission from the man who was just speaking, that the Republican policies that they're trying to use right now won't help you. Who says these things will work? Do you have an independent economist who says these things that you're trying to do will help the American people? Yes, he says, Art Laffer. Everybody laughs. Because everybody there has a professional interest in knowing what's going on. It's not your fault for not knowing who Art Laffer is. Really not. But it will be your fault if you ever vote for a Republican again. Because I've just explained to you what happened. He said, Art Laffer, everybody laughed. He laughed. Because they all know what a joke that is. And he just said it because he knew that before I said it to you just now, you didn't know who that was. You wouldn't get the joke, because the joke, folks, is on you. If somebody is citing Art Laffer or the Laffer curve as their justification for doing something, mention Kansas, the state that in 2012 to 2015 was run based on those principles and utterly ran out of money immediately. Lost one of the crowning achievements of the state, which was to say their public school system. They lost that. Decimated it. Because it's not good economics, in other words. The only thing it does, and the only reason they were trying to put it in place in the first place, is that it gets the rich out of paying for things that we all use. Taxes are just the funds we use to pay for things that everybody needs. And the rich, who are evil, don't want to do that. And you know they're evil because they lie to you to get it done. They bribe politicians to get up there and say, do this thing. Do this thing, folks. We think it's good economics. And to knowingly lie and to knowingly pretend that it's good economics when they know, because they couldn't hold back a laugh as they said it, they know that Laffer is laughable and they are lying. Well, if they know it's a lie and they know it's going to hurt you, and their motivations are obvious, the people that give them money told them to do this, that person is not worthy of your trust on anything ever again. That's a con artist. And if you didn't know all this before I told you, it's not your fault. But now you know. And everything that happens now, every choice you make regarding these people, this filthy party, now that you know this, that will be your fault. You will be judged. Now that I know, you know. And if you don't believe me, here's your chance to say, now that I know, you know. I'm going to judge you. It's one thing to get conned. It's another thing to go back for more. What kind of person are you, honestly? No matter what you think you get away with convincing me about yourself, you're going to have to go home with the real knowledge. You're going to have to go home knowing what you are. Everybody can be the victim of a con artist once. But somebody who is a multi-time victim of the same con artist, at some point they simply become a co-conspirator. Or maybe a masochist. I don't know. Think about what you are, Republican. Because now you know the Republican Party lies to you. You might think this isn't Donald Trump, though. You might think, no, not my boy. Not Trump. He doesn't lie. That's the Republican Party you're talking about, sir, not sweet baby boy Donald Trump. Well, it's not just economics that they're lying to you about. It is, in fact, everything. Everything that they say they want to do. They give you an excuse. But it has nothing to do with why they want to do what they want to do, because they know you wouldn't support their goals. What do they want to do? They just want to pay for less things that you use, they being rich people. They want personal power for themselves, unchecked. They want to be able to basically live like your kings. You, an American possibly, regardless, a modern person who does not bend the knee, one would hope, to anybody. Not unless you're getting knighted. They know you wouldn't like that. So they need to give you, they need to put on a play for you, essentially. And they tell you, well, you're in danger is the thing. That's the thing. We know if we keep promising you money, you will eventually ask me where it is. So I must promise you something other than money so I can say I'm doing that. I know what we'll do. We'll take a whole group of people and we'll start calling them illegals. And that will mean many different things, so that whenever you say illegals, the person you're talking to get out of social awkwardness, will assume you mean the best possible thing they can stomach. And now maybe you mean, when you say illegals, maybe you mean immigrants that do crimes when they're over here. Maybe you mean immigrants who came over here without notifying the government first, and then immediately notified the government, which is what the standard, it's actually a perfectly legal way to immigrate, but maybe that's what you mean anyway. Or maybe you mean people that came over here and never notified the government. Or maybe you mean people that came over here, notified the government, and then their time they were allowed to be here expired. And they stayed a little too long. You know how sometimes you'll forget you have an appointment coming up, like it happens, let's say, once every 6 months, and you go, oh, shoot, what month is it? It's June? It's June. I thought this thing was supposed to be in July. And now here I am, halfway through June, and I haven't gone to the meeting. Like that. Maybe that's what you mean. The beautiful thing is, what it really only means is brown people. What it really only means is anybody they can get away with harassing. Remember what I said about the Laffer curve. Remember how, if it was just a moment ago easy for you to see how they lie to you about one thing, understand that other things that they're lying about might not be as easy until it affects you personally, like it did with this guy.
It's financially as well as emotionally. It takes a toll.
Vincent, you voted for Donald Trump?
Yes, I did.
He thought the Trump administration was going to focus solely on deporting criminals. It seems immigration officials, he says, are just trying to meet quotas now. 6 Nicaraguan men who on May 27th were detained along US 1 in Sugarloaf Key on their way to a job. Their immigration attorney says it should not have happened because 5 of the 6 have their paperwork in order with pending asylum cases. Vincent Scardina is the owner of the roofing company where they worked. He's owned it 37 years.
You become their friends, just not an employer, but a friend. And you see what happens to their family. It's quite a shock.
Given his support for the president, we asked what he would tell the commander-in-chief if he had a chance.
What happened here? This situation is just totally, just blatantly not at all what they said it was.
That guy owned that roofing company for 37 years. Half of his workers, he says, were these Nicaraguan fellas. Now, why do you reckon he had all these Nicaraguans working for him? Do you think possibly he was paying them a little bit less than you would have paid somebody born in the United States? Do you think that might have been it? Maybe. I honestly don't know, but I suspect that was probably the case. And that's not uncommon. If you got a job to do in the United States and you need a bunch of people to help you do it, you don't have pals around, and you do have about $200. That's a great way to get a crew. What is a great way? Well, you go to Home Depot, you see a bunch of dudes standing outside, you say, hey, I need 10 of you for 2 hours. Who wants to make $10 an hour? There's an easy way to get it done. When this guy voted for Trump, clearly he did not think he would be affecting his own business. Clearly, when he was hearing illegals, he was imagining something different than the people he worked with every single day. But now he sees that what those insufferable lefties were saying was 100% correct. There's no principle guiding Trump's actions. There never has been. There never will be, beyond enriching himself and distracting you. When you are giving ICE permission to, first of all, exist, y'all don't remember, I can tell, but ICE is a George W. Bush invention. I saw it get invented. I said it was unnecessary at the time. Lo and behold, I was also correct about that. Nonetheless, when you give ICE permission to run through your neighborhood in unmarked vehicles without identification on their clothes, pointing guns, assault rifles in people's faces, going into homes, poking around businesses, when you allow them to do that, right-leaning voter, understand, number one, a bunch of those guys that they picked up were not in any way doing anything illegal. Understand, number two, the reason they say they're going after these people is so that you give them the power. You're not giving them the power so they can do a thing. They're doing a thing so you give them the power, and they don't give it back. They said they would. In 2007, they said they would. In 2006, they said they would. I misspoke when I said 2007. But when ICE came into being, when they started tapping people's phones, when they have violated the Republicans, when they violated everybody's rights, they said it's because these scary Browns, once upon a time it was Middle Eastern scary Browns, and it from time to time bounces back to being Southern Hemisphere scary Browns. But nonetheless, they said when these scary Browns are dealt with, then we'll think about giving back the power. They never do. Right-wingers, you are the reason America is less free. You are the reason America is less rich. And you know what? You should be a little bit flattered, because the Republican Party has spent billions of dollars to sway your opinion because they need your vote. If you want America to improve, Republican voter, you have to change. And, you don't need to suddenly become a genius at politics. You simply have to stop making the same basic mistake over and over again. And you have to stop letting your friends and your family make the same basic mistake over and over again. Once you find out that you are being willfully lied to by a person or a group of people, you have an obligation to stop listening to them. We know that Fox News knew the 2020 election was not stolen. Even if you think it was, first of all, you're obviously wrong. Very provably wrong. But let's say you think it was because you've only listened to Fox News and you thought you were getting good information. And you didn't listen to the court cases that Fox News was in. about this thing that you believe. In court, they had to admit that they didn't think it was true when they were telling you about it. So again, even if separate from that, you think that the 2020 election was stolen, understand that when Fox was telling you that it was, they didn't believe it. They thought they were lying to you. I would phrase it better as they knew they were lying to you. But regardless of what you believe, you need to accept that Fox, collectively and individually, as in the individual hosts and the whole group in discussions amongst themselves, knew that they were lying about the 2020 election when they told you there was problems with it. They knew they were lying. Which means you must never listen to them again. The Republican Party, man, any major policy they have ever tried to push, they knew was built upon lies. Never listen to them ever again. Because before this moment, it was not your fault. And after this moment, it will be. Let's say hi to the wicked community. Hedge Enemy, that's a new name. Good to see it. Now he sees, but he would do it again. These people cannot be trusted to do the right thing ever. There's 70 million of them is the problem. And I agree with you that in my assessment, which is also probably wrong, but in my assessment, 99 out of 100 of these folks aren't going to be productive to talk to. I don't even want to say they're not worth talking to, because it's worth understanding even the delusions of these people. But 1 in 100 will be. 1 in 100, imagine you're a dude who's like 10 years younger than me. You're just entering into your 30s. And you grew up in a small southern town surrounded by pro-Republican stuff. And the small town that you grew up in was fine. And then you move to a different place and you see all kinds of different signs around you. And you've always voted a certain way. You don't really follow politics, but you voted a certain way because in your mind, it's better just to be responsible with money and merciless to people because people will take advantage of your mercy. That's what you think. And then you move to a bigger town, let's say, and there's a smattering of signs all around you. And first of all, everybody's sort of picking a side. So what do? You say, well, I'm a conservative. I'll get involved in this. And you put up a conservative sign. And then how are you treated? Who talks to you? How does your opinion change? It's not our responsibility. At this point, it's not our responsibility to change that person's mind, to even be kind to that person. Because they've had the internet. They've heard people say, you're killing us with your vote. And they've chosen not to investigate any further. So it's not your responsibility, but it is your opportunity. What happens if that person starts voting Republican? Well, it's one more consistent Republican vote. The older they get, the more cemented they will be. And then for the rest of their life, there is one additional grain in the avalanche of bad ideas smothering the good. Or you talk to this person, you calmly state the things you believe, and maybe they listen. Maybe they don't actually hear anything you're saying, or they pretend to understand the things you're saying, but because they don't really follow politics, they don't understand. the thing we all basically do to avoid embarrassment. But they make note of how you're talking to them. They make note of the fact that you have a logic behind what you're saying. That you're not the caricature of a liberal, of a lefty, but they'll call it liberal, that they have been bracing for, that they've been told to expect. They have a wrong idea about what we believe and a pretty accurate idea about how we'll behave. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So, again, once upon a time I would have said it's your obligation to talk to them. I no longer believe that. I think there's abundantly clear. I think you have to be willfully ignorant at this point. But how willful and how ignorant if you are a Republican. It is an opportunity. And you could... here's the better way to put it. I don't think seek it out. I don't think if this is the sort of thing that you think you can do, I don't think that you should waste your time looking for these folks until they're ready to talk. But when they are ready to talk, if someone comes to you, if, for example, you have a business owner like this guy who says, I didn't think I was voting for my own employees to get taken, be ready. Explain the Laffer curve. Be like, well, congratulations, you're no longer socially conservative. Now let's talk about fiscally conservative. Now you know that it was lies. Now you know that when we were warning you that they would use this to come after everybody, that we were right and they were lying to you. Now let's look at finances. Let's see, are you fiscally conservative? Because that just means you enjoy being lied to about money. No. Like, the way I'm speaking is even too aggressive, but, take it from there to who you're talking to and say, like, well, yeah, and that's not the only thing they lie about. This is a party of habitual liars. And when they say, but what about Democrats? Shock them by acknowledging that Democrats aren't good. Because they're not. But they are better. They're about halfway between decency and the kind of fascism that Trump represents, that the Republican Party has always tried for. Speaking of, here's the people I think we do have an obligation to talk to, and that is centrist Dems. Those are people who equally don't think about politics, probably haven't thought about politics in 20 years, and like to think of themselves as good people. They are the reason why we are in this mess. In 2020, the things Trump did, you could argue, was not. I gotta record this. I'm so sorry. Oh God, really bad. 1 second. Oh, it's just painful. As I was saying, the Democrats in 2020 could arguably be forgiven for all the things Trump did. I didn't stutter. Democrats. It's not the fault of Democrats. Necessarily, even you might say arguably, what Trump did. What Trump is doing now is the fault of Democrats. Yeah. They had 4 years to deal with a serious crisis. They didn't. They wanted to make nice. They wanted to bury America's problems. They wanted to do the same thing we did after Nixon, after Reagan, after George W. Bush. They wanted to pretend like everything was fine and they're everybody's friend. Why do they do this? Let's start with, what is the motivation for a centrist Democrat? It's pretty obvious. It's pretty easy to spot. The motivation for a centrist Democrat is money. They want money. They want power. They will defend constantly the people that give them money. Most importantly, they are willing to lie. And they are not willing to fight for you. What does a centrist Democrat constantly say the answer is for Trump? Well, you got to get out and vote. Oh, you got to get out and protest. Oh, you have to do so much work. Oh, you have so much work to do. You do. Yeah, this person in the opposing party, they really are evil. Oh, they're stomping on our rights. Yeah. They're really evil. What are we gonna do? Well, what we're gonna do is say, you get out there. You get out there and go take care of it, America. Go deal with my problems. That's their answer for all this. Trump broke the law. He incited an insurrection. That's just a statement of fact. I sincerely believe it. I saw it like the rest of you did. It took place on television. It didn't require a lot of parsing out. We only deserved, or Trump only deserved, an opportunity to officially say in court why he did what he did. But what he did was not in question. What he did was done in front of cameras. He should have been arrested immediately. January 20th at 12:01 p.m. Bracelets should have been on that punk, but there weren't. Didn't happen. Merrick Garland apparently said that Trump's name could not even be mentioned by FBI investigating it. I'm not even sure if that story's true, literally, but I can tell you I was livid. I was in front of this microphone hollering into it when the statute of limitations was approaching on all Trump's crimes. They did not actually seem to even be aware of the things the January 6th committee was investigating. They didn't officially move against Trump in any sort of way until the whole stolen documents thing came to light. And that only came to light because Trump complained about it publicly. That is a good, immediate example of why these people are useless. But it extends further. Just like I went from economics to Trump, let's go the other way, because it's easier for us to understand in those terms. Centrist Dems, we're going to go from Trump to economics. Right now, they're trying to convince you. What's the first thing that a centrist Democrat did when Trump and Elon Musk were fighting? They tried to make overtures to Elon Musk. If you are a centrist Democrat, you probably thought Bill Clinton was a really good president. You probably thought Barack Obama was a really good president because those people are very polite. They're classy individuals, you know. They constantly attempt to work across the aisle even as their hand gets slapped away again and again. They constantly try to do that. They fetishize compromise, even when they're compromising with the devil. They are doing the same thing every flawed political philosophy does, which is believe in their own philosophy too much. Their philosophy, neoliberalism, it's called. They believe business should not be impeded in any way, shape, or form. And by impeded, they also mean regulated. There should be no laws. It should be basically the jungle for businesses. And you can just suffer. Oh, they'll use the correct terms. They'll call a she, and a he, and a they as the person requests. Good for them. Very polite. They will not raise the minimum wage. If you want to know how we get the Democrats in the House and Senate and the White House and yet get nothing done, it's because of centrist Democrats. They will not raise the minimum wage. They will not vote for universal health care. They will not increase how much the rich have to pay for Social Security. That's called raising the cap on Social Security. The cap that they refer to is the amount of money that you make that can be taxed for Social Security. It's already set above what the average American makes. So 100% of what the average American makes is taxed for Social Security. But rich Americans stop paying Social Security tax after, I think it's $145,000. So when you look at Elon Musk, if he makes, say, $1 billion next year, which would be many less billion than he normally makes, only about 1% of that gets taxed for Social Security. Democrats will not raise that cap. They would rather you get less Social Security than tax the rich more. Centrist Democrats are the reason the war in Ukraine dragged on and on. This is going to hurt a lot of my lefties to hear, but brutality is not always the cruelest option. In the beginning of the war in Ukraine, when marginally sane people were in control, I was ranting and raving at you guys that we should send tanks, we should send jets, we should send the full might of our stuff, if not the people to operate them, because Ukraine was fighting for its life and deserved to repel this invasion quickly. And if they could do it quickly, then they would avoid the Russian slog. Russia famously grinds its enemies down. They are always willing to send more bodies and take back home more body bags. They don't usually take them home, they burn them, but send more bodies than the other guy. That's kind of been the Russian tactic since World War whatever. I don't know pre-World War II. Maybe forever. When we were killing them with knights and stuff, I don't know if that was the case. But look, why didn't we do it? Because it makes more money to trickle in Javelin missiles. That's why Democrats didn't support Ukraine with more ordnance, bigger guns, because the war would have been over faster, and it's better for us on the world stage if our longtime enemy is instead stuck in a forever war. Now, if you're purely doing things based off of personal interest, the Democrats didn't do anything wrong. If you're purely doing things off of how much money you'll make, how much money maybe your country will make off the bloodshed, off the death, then the Democrats really didn't do anything wrong. They played it perfectly. Russia's been bled to death doing this, basically. Fortunately, they are fighting wars like it's the last century. They don't realize we are in an information war. We don't realize that Russia does as much of their fighting through Tim Pool as they do through missiles. So, they trickled in javelins and they slowly escalated. Ooh, we got a troop transport that we're sending. We got a troop transport you can have. Oh, we're going to give you an Abrams tank. We're going to give you an Abrams tank. All right, tell you what. We're going to give you 5. Don't worry that we have like 1,000. We're going to give you 5. And we let this go on and on and on and on and on. We let way more people die because it's a business move, because it makes people who pay their bribes happy. When you were young, centrist Democrat, when you were a youthful person and you were shaking your fist at the military-industrial complex, if that was you, And you're a centrist Dem now. You're part of it. You are part of that thing you hated. And they got you to be there by calling it different stuff. They got you to be there by playing to your misconceptions about how the world works. Look at the things that are wrong with America and ask yourself, who's profiting off of it? So if, for example, you think U.S. healthcare is an abomination, if you think the U.S. ought to join the rest of the world in having universal healthcare, every other, well, not other civilized country, every civilized country in the world has universal healthcare. The U.S. has yet to civilize itself. If you want to join them as a grown, real country that people respect, understand that the real time you have to vote for that is not during the election. It's during the primary. Nobody who was in government before 2015 ought to be voted back in, with the exception of Bernie Sanders and maybe, I don't even know if she's still running. I'm going to hold that back, actually. There's just, old school Democrats are worthless. They are how we got to Trump. They don't believe in anything. They play games entirely with your vote, with your confidence, with your faith. They're not willing to be bold, and they're certainly not willing to do any work that needs to get done. They will tisk, and they will loudly join the right side after better people than them win the fight. They do not deserve your support. To put this another way, centrist Democrats, if you consider yourself a lefty, you consider yourself, well, I'm not a greedy person, I'm not a cruel person, I'm not a racist person, I'm not any of those things, I vote Democrat. Kudos to you for desiring to be a good person. Understand that a Democrat, in the rest of the world's eyes, is a deeply conservative person. In England, your standard Democrat would be viewed as probably an extremist right-wing figure. In Norway, they certainly would. In Denmark, yes. In Sweden, yes. In France, maybe less so, but they would be on the far right. In Canada, they would be on the far right. In Mexico, they would be on the far right. If you're serious about helping the American people, first of all, don't pound a root beer before the program. And second, vote progressive. Vote for the progressive in the primary. If they are talking about universal health care, if they're bragging about the fact that they don't get bribes from huge companies, if they are talking sincerely about police reform, that's the person to vote for. Now, you might be wondering, how did I get here? How did I wind up here? It's because what you saw horrifyingly happened to your friend group with Fox News. Starting in, let's say, 2005. That's happening now. CNN, NBC, MSNBC, all of them. As the young folks get their news online, and huge businesses control the news stations you watch, those huge businesses simply will not allow those stations to tell you the truth about how those big businesses are thieving from you. And if you like the shows that are on there, fair enough, but you now have an obligation to look out for the lies and to acknowledge their bias and to I mean, I'm saying this all with the understanding that you will eventually realize that they are not of much value. So I'll just jump to the point. They're not of much value to you anymore. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You can thank Reagan for removing the Fairness Doctrine, which required news stations to act more like news stations, but now they're really just TV businesses. And you know what? This is no different. Look at that, yeah. Look at that behind me. This is no different. But your boy wears it on his sleeve, and they don't. And because they don't, you ought not to trust them, because they have been doing the work of their advertisers for a long time. Speaking of, it's a good time to remind you that this program is brought to you by Red Tiger. Wait, was it? No, oh, that's right. It's brought to you by the many Red Tiger products. Red Tiger energy drink, and of course, oh dear God, what have I done? And of course, Red Tiger cigarettes.
I have a couple of goals in my life. I think, there's
男人和女性的专利。
This program is brought to you by Red Tiger cigarettes. Red Tiger.
癌症是白人和女性的专利。
This program is probably could have been a smoother transition. I should probably just download those, right? Hey gang, how you doing? David Martin Van Graff, where we're going, we don't need roads. Well, I wholeheartedly agree. Pinkerbell, this is such a scam. I feel like if more people understood that one fact about the Social Security cap, we could pressure enough lawmakers to get that changed. Hey, here's a question. Where do we go to do that? Pink. I think you're right. And one thing I want us to stop doing is pretending like Republicans won't also buckle to pressure. We just need to get the Republican voters to make them do something. So where do we go to do that? I think we just find where these politicians are going to be publicly and tell them to raise the cap. Yeah, tell you what, gang. Everybody that can get onto another show, get onto another show. LT9K, I saw you, mother. You're streaming now. I'm going to be tapping into that a lot. Try to get onto some right-winger shows. Try to get onto some centrist shows. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try to get progressives onto centrist shows. So like Breaking Points or whatever the hell. And whatever you consider to be centrist, get there and get everybody talking about raising the cap. Because it's not terribly difficult. If you just explain it simply, and you're intending to explain it simply, it's not difficult. The only reason it feels that way to us is because it was very intentionally introduced in a shady manner. But yeah, it's just the maximum amount of your income which Social Security is taken out of. For most of us, that's 100%. But for rich people, it's less than 1%. And that means we pay all of our income towards Social Security, and they pay about 1% of their income towards Social Security. And that is thieving. It's legal. It is legal. It's not robbery. It's not larceny. It's not fraud. It's not illegal. But it is immoral, and it was done with deception. So it is thieving, in my opinion. And it is legalized thieving, which we all simply allow. And that must change. Tinkerbell, but need to flesh it out a little. You're not wrong. And I need to... This is why I consistently say I'm not the guy. I need to stop calling people to their face. And I don't know why this happens, but I get furious. And then I hear myself saying terrible things. And I want to not be doing it, but not as much as I want to be doing it. You know what? How about this? I just got to grow the fuck up. That's what I'll do. Lanzetta, I wouldn't consider Breaking Point centrist. Crystal is a classic lefty, and Cigar is a nerdy fascist. Ryan Grimm is a progressive, and Emily just sucks, so I'm not sure what you would call that. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know centrist media. I used to, but I don't. Everybody wear ball caps and hold them above your head. Raise the cap. JK, this isn't the idea. The mental image just made me giggle. I like it. Millionaires will never receive Social Security. Oh, they ought not to. Or maybe they ought to. I don't even know. Hate them. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Everybody knows how bad MAGA and Trump are. We don't need to point it out. Trump supporters see it too, but if you say it, it puts them on the defense, and they are too busy trying to defend him than listening to anything you are saying. Here's the deal. I mostly agree with that assessment. Here's the one place I disagree. If you point out how bad he is for them, because the pitch is, yeah, it's for them. If you say he's screwing you over, he's doing this to you, he's failing to fulfill these yada yada. I still think though I just think you're right. Like I think it's good for us to have discussion points ready to go for them, not unlike it is good to set a place every day at the dinner table for that relative of yours who you said may not come back into your life until they quit the drinking. It doesn't mean you invite them over. You already told them how it's going to be. You already told them, look, last time you were drunk, you pissed on my curtains. Willfully, you looked me in the eyes and you said, I'm going to piss on your curtains. And then you did. And I said, don't come back here until you're not drinking. And I threw out those curtains. My shame, I tried to wash them first. It's like that. Having the point made for why Trump is not good for them and another thing would be good for them is like setting out that table. But I mean, you are right in that it's going to be like talking to a wall if you go to them. I'm not even going to discourage people from trying. I think it's beautiful to try. I can't in good conscience tell people that I think it's going to work, because I don't think it's going to work. Unless they come to you. Unless an open person comes to you and genuinely wants to know why you believe what you believe. And by the way, it's good for you to consider why you believe what you believe. Also, please consider this. I should have done a better job of making this case to Matt and Andrea yesterday, because they're two of the savviest human beings on this planet, and I couldn't communicate this to them. I don't know why. So I notice that when I ask Trump supporters what they think I believe, they have never, and I want to be so clear that I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they have literally never, not even once, correctly named something that I believe. For us not to consider that that goes both ways would be foolish, would be beyond arrogant. And what do we always say we think the other side ought to do? They ought to check their facts, right? Now, we think we are checking their facts when we pull up a clip from Tim Pool or Joe Rogan. But I saw a thing the other day talking about, cringe millennial stuff. Cringe millennial behavior. What was the behavior they were talking about? It was all online trends that old folks hadn't, or folks my age hadn't let go of yet. Behaviors I never engaged in. Behaviors that I never knew anybody who ever engaged in. I'm not saying we're wrong, because Because I've met plenty of Trump supporters who are absolutely as ignorant as you think. In fact, I used to be the guy that goes to the protests that Trump supporters are doing and talks to them. And the people that were there were everything that you'd imagine. They were exactly what you'd imagine. That doesn't mean 70 million of them are. They might be wrong, and we might be right. It's also entirely possible that we're both wrong. It is not possible that they're right. I have looked. But the point is, we might be imagining what they believe. Or we might be imagining why they do things. And their reasoning is still going to be wrong. Because ultimately what Trump promises them is not what he delivers. And their refusal to see that is important for us to be serious about. Yet, we should understand, if only for security's sake, we should understand the ways in which they're wrong. And we should be able, even if we can't understand them, we should be able to make an affirmative case for ourselves. We should know why we believe what we believe and why, crucially, why what we want to happen is going to help them. I'll tell you, I don't think America should be a theocracy. I think we should, in fact, ban the mandatory teaching of Christian beliefs. And I say that with all love for Christians. And I say that because atheists deserve to be respected every bit as much as Christians do. But I also say that for the benefit of Christians. I also say that because the Christian religion can only be corrupted by involvement with the government. And if I'm talking to a Baptist preacher who's telling me why he thinks America ought to be a theocracy, I think it's wise then to be able to fall back on why America being a theocracy would be bad for Christians. And it infuriates us, I know, to not make the case for the atheist, for the Jew, for the Muslim. I know. We want to say, you, mister. Your thing gets to stomp out their thing? No. That's what we've been fighting against this whole time. That's un-American, and you're right to be wrong. Wait, right to be wrong? You're right to be angry. You're right to think they're wrong. But it doesn't change the fact that you're not addressing what they're talking about if you are over there trying to get them to accept your morals first. And by the way, it doesn't mean come up with a lie for the things you believe. It means develop your beliefs the way you say you do, the way you tell others your beliefs come from. Sincerely looking out for the greatest good for all people. And even if you don't have a very strong case for why your belief system meets their needs, you should at least be aware of the ways in which it does, even if it doesn't do a great job. Another way to put it, if you are a butter knife salesman, and you know you're going through a neighborhood full of people that believe the zombie apocalypse is coming next week, you might, even if you don't believe that the zombie apocalypse is coming next week, you might do well to study up on the ways in which the butter knife will still have a place in the zombie apocalypse. Or to talk about the ways in which you need a butter knife regardless of whether or not the zombie apocalypse happens. You're saying there's going to be no toast in the apocalypse? Come on. Talking to these people is not going to be easy, and I think the majority of work done in this country will be done by the half of the country that isn't in a cult. But we still ought to understand our own side well enough for why to be able to explain why it is good for other people. Why is it good for the other side? Ask a Republican why their side winning is good for you. And they'll probably have some reasons. Those reasons won't be accurate, but they'll have reasons. Do you have reasons? Why is your side winning? Legitimate question. I'm going to look at the comments in a moment. I can't so much talk and read at the same time, but I am going to look at the comments in a moment. Why is the left winning good for everybody? I mean, I name so many different things. Universal health care. It's universal. It's for everybody. You will never have to change your business plans to make financial room for your health decisions ever again. If you are a libertarian type and you're saying, ooh, but I hate when we use taxes to do anything of value. I hate when we help other people. Say, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, libertarian. You should call into the Majority Report. But also, I'm not gonna lie to you, you are gonna have to pay more taxes. I mean, you're gonna pay less overall for healthcare. You're gonna pay less in terms of treating other people. But let me tell you what you'll get from it, because you don't live in a libertarian society right now. No matter which way we go on this. It's going to be easier for you, libertarian, to start a new business. You can leave your old business more easily because you won't have to worry about your family's safety. Now, maybe you want to worry about your family's safety. Maybe you want a scenario where that's a risk. But I tell you this, it's going to simplify your plans. It's going to simplify them pretty significantly. If healthcare is simply granted. If it's understood that no matter where you go, no matter what other risks you took, we will attempt to save your life in a hospital. We'll attempt to keep you alive as best we can. It makes it more possible for you to be independent because you don't rely on a whole community then to come together when you get sick. Just have an argument. And think about, when we imagine making arguments, I think, especially in this bubble society we now live in, we think, what would be an argument that would sway my people? And, that, I think everybody does that, frankly, and I think it works pretty well amongst progressives, because amongst progressives, this is the only group I've seen that's sincerely discussing policy, like actually trying to come up with ideas that would make things better. But we think then that it's going to work for other groups. And it doesn't, because we're not addressing their... I think it doesn't because we're not addressing their core concerns, the things they say they care about. We hear different things. But I don't know, truth be told. I don't know why it doesn't work. I just know that we should be ready to talk to them. All right. What do you guys think? What are some lefty things that would help, that could be pitched to right-wing beliefs? An actual cloud. Does everyone know the last 4 digits of Jake's phone, or should I Discord him? Wait, I can't do it. Hold on. Wait. Shut the fuck up. I see what you're saying. 1 second. I can't do it. I can't just say the last 4 without doing the whole thing. Hold on. 8236. But just Discord me. I have Discord open now. What are we talking about? It is 8236. And I saw a bikini picture that I don't know they meant on Discord. Oh, it's a thumbnail. They did. Okay. Fucking, I do not get Discord. I'm sorry. The old man syndrome is hitting me real hard. All social media, I don't understand anymore. You just need to know what you believe in, what you want, and how to get it. I think the first thing, mainly, is important in political discussions. Know what you believe in. You can get to and I say that because you should know all 3, But you can get to the other two from knowing the first thing. Okay. Well, gang, sounds like somebody wants to call in. Yeah. Actual Cloud. Write me on Discord or text me if you've got somehow the entirety of my phone number. Donald James asks, this is a swing country. Ever since this country switched to only 2 terms, but we always go from Democrat to GOP all the time. Look at what's going on now. Yeah, I think the wheels are about to fall off this thing. Yeah, sure, buddy. Yeah, Wicked Foxy Dragon. What I mean is, don't prepare a set of facts, just talk about it. Yeah. Truly, yeah. If you have principles, and you're sincerely trying to follow those principles, most of the rest will take care of itself. Well, before we go, some tips for tomorrow if you're going to these protests. Again, if you want to find a protest near you to just slow the roll of fascism, go to the link in the description, and I will have a link there for you. Very bottom thing under what you can do. You click on that link, it tells you what in your area can you go to. I want to be very clear about something, because I see lefties that I suspect, I just disagree with. I think their hearts are probably in the right place, but I would like to give you some advice that I think is good for these. It's not a bad thing to get arrested. I've seen so many people talk about this like it's the scariest thing. It could be done brutally, and that would suck. I'm sorry if that happens to you. But let's talk about realistic. Realistically, you are probably not going to get arrested because we're expecting a lot of turnout here. And if you do get arrested, don't start kicking. Don't try to wriggle out and run away. Let them arrest you. Let them arrest you. I'm gonna record this because I want to put this out separately. If you go to the protests, any protests against the Trump administration, where there is military in the streets and cops being told to be the biggest pigs they possibly can be, understand that it's possible you will be arrested. If that happens, don't start kicking. Don't try to headbutt anybody. Don't try to show America and the world how tough you are. Just get arrested. If you can, wear a suit. Or whatever you consider church clothes to be, whatever you consider fancy night out clothes to be, wear that to the protest. Why? Why would you do that? Well, so we can get as many images as possible of cops treating decent American citizens, decent citizens of the world, but decent American citizens in particular, brutally, unfairly, for just coming out and talking. We want to highlight, in other words, what it is the other side is doing wrong, what is evil about the other side. That's all we're trying to do. It's not the scariest thing in the world if police arrest you. It's inconvenient. You're in for a boring evening. But, and it's a Saturday. Conceivable you're going to be there till Monday. Oh my God. That sucks. No joke. That sucks. But you'll be fine. You will. And by getting arrested, you will have struck a greater blow than could possibly have been struck any other way. Because you're going to be taking up space and time of people that would otherwise be kicking in the heads of some guy that says man a lot because he's a hippie. You know, now then there's the other side to it. People on the other side are going to say things. They're going to try to goad you. They might even get rough with you. You might have cops that are being abusive towards you. You know, saying things, smug little remarks. Maybe somebody shoots a pepper ball at your feet. They want you to pick up a stone and throw it at them. They're desperate for you to do that. They want to get a shot of you throwing a bottle or a brick or some nonsense. Why would they want that? So they can get a photo of it and say that's what we're all doing. There's people in this country that think Seattle doesn't exist anymore because it burned to the ground. Don't be the person that ruins it for the rest of us. There's a reason Martin Luther King was so effective. I don't mean to say that he's the only civil rights person that was ever effective. I don't mean to say that other people that had other ideas weren't also effective. But Martin Luther King's strategy can be replicated by all of us very easily. It doesn't mean doing it's easy, but we have the qualifications to try it. Put on nice clothes and go march. And if they're going to arrest us for marching, good. Be arrested proudly. Hold your head as high as you can before they shove it down and put you in the car. It has been an information war for 10 years. Russia started it. But thank God, the left knows these tactics, pioneered them in the 60s, and now has them to rely upon. Dress nicely. Make the image incongruous. Don't dress like a sort of person that you would imagine gets arrested. Dress like the sort of person that it would shock you to see be arrested. Dress like the sort of person a community would miss. And show up. And be brave. And understand you don't have to be that brave. And you're surrounded by decency. By good people who are there with you to do the right thing. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name is Jake. And, oh, right, we got sponsors now. So, this is, of course, Red Tiger Cigarettes. This program is brought to you by Red Tiger Cigarettes. Red Tiger.
癌症是白人和女性的专利。
This program is brought